So, hello everyone. I hope I'm audible. Can you quickly ping in the chat if I'm audible? Yes. Okay, cool. So guys, if you have any doubts till today's session, quickly ping that in the chat. Any doubt regarding everything that we have discussed yesterday, inheritance, then the coding problem that we solved, or anything regarding bitwise operators. If that is clear, today we'll start with some multiple and multi-level inheritance because that was left. And other than that, we will also complete and look into something called the classic diamond problem of C++. It's a very conceptual problem, and it will help you to understand the concepts in a very root level. And let me quickly share my screen. Okay. So guys, I hope my screen is visible to all of you. In a sec, yeah. Okay, that's very sweet of you people. Thank you. So cool. Let me zoom in a bit. And okay, so guys, before we start today, my concept, I want to clear out some concept to you. So just imagine today. I'm so sorry I couldn't prepare the slides today. So I'll try to illustrate with the code. Okay. So guys, what I'm trying to do here is just imagine that you have a class, for example, Netflix that we had built yesterday, right? Sorry, the day before yesterday. And we know that the class Netflix inside that it had some constructor जिसके अंदर हम objects pass करते थे and we could get an object of constructor when from the main function we used to call class Netflix, right? We just used to say Netflix object and our class was being created just like that. But this is so easy, right? With object oriented programming, we saw that we can create how data flows. We can restrict from of one object from accessing the private attributes or data of another object. We learned about access specifiers. But here the problem is this constructor. Anyone can create a constructor and access the data, right? Anyone, literally anyone, can just create an object of type Netflix and get started with the object, and it can then utilize all the different streaming functions, all the content that is inside this. They can access literally everything. I'm not following the proper syntax. I'm just trying to illustrate the um, glitch or the flaw in our design, that even though this idea is perfectly fine, but anyone can utilize this idea. We are not restricting the utilization of our class. Anyone from class function main can just say Netflix, create an object, and then utilize everything that our brilliant idea is providing. Okay, you guys want me to zoom in more? I guess it is clear. Yes, Raj is trying. Can someone confirm me if it is clear? And I do need to zoom in more. Okay, so by the time, this is the idea that although our idea is very pretty brilliant, but it is free to use. Not even free to use. I mean, literally anyone can just call the class and create an object. Now let's see how we can restrict the creation of an object, and after that we will do some very interesting stuff with it. We'll go with the we'll go for the diamond problem today. So here's the thing. What do we want to do? And okay, before I do that, can someone tell me, when we create this Netflix object, when we create an object of any class, what is the function that is automatically called? What is the function that is automatically called by default whenever any object of this class is created, or any class for that sake of matter? Constructor, exactly. Can I get more answers? Is everyone clear with it? Okay, cool. Constructor. So we know that whenever an object of any class is created, the constructor is automatically called. And we also know the reason for that. I guess the code should be somewhere here. Let me quickly open that demo code of day before yesterday. Yeah, it's right here. So we know that the constructor Netflix score, it was being automatically called whenever an object of class Netflix score was being created. And the reason that it is so easy, anyone can create an object of class Netflix score, because it was public. That is the only reason that anyone could literally access it. We already know if we declare something private, it is not possible to access it from main, right? So what if I make my constructor private? If I make my constructor private, can the object now be created from class main? Quickly ping in the chat. If I make the constructor private, is it possible to create an object? Because it is the constructor which initializes an object and initializes the attributes and returns the object to the class. Exactly, it is not possible. So that is how you restrict the creation of your object. And why do you want to restrict? For example, in this example, I would want to restrict because this is Netflix, right? We created a class Netflix. Here, I would want to make any object restricted, give it a restricted creation, because I want my users to pay. And if the payment is successful, only then I would allow them to stream and use my Netflix core class. Some other reasons that you might need is, for example, let's say this was something else. Let's say class animal. And you only want to return an object. You only want to return an object of type animal when the attributes are correct. जैसे हम constructor में inputs लेते हैं, for example, let's say int hands and int legs. We know that any animal, and let's talk about mammals, or just say mammals who can walk. So how many hands and legs they normally have? They have two, right? But the normal way that we do is we make the constructor public. यहाँ पे हम simply कर देते हैं this dot hands is equal to hands, and then we return it. And then that's how the object is created, right? Just like that. But what I want is these values that I'm getting should be legitimate. There should be some meaningful value, and only then I want to create. For example, I want it to be only if the hands that I'm getting as an input to create an object should be less than equal to 2, right? And same thing for legs as well. And what I want to say is, I want to check if the hands and legs, I mean, whatever attributes I'm getting, if those attributes are meaningful, only then I want an object to be created. So, this gives me two things. So this brings back us to the conclusion that if we make the constructor private and then we use some other function to first do this, conditionals for us, check the attributes, and only then allow an object to be created. That method we are going to do today. We are going to, make a constructor private. And now you might think, if a constructor is private, how can we create an object? Because बाकी चीजों के लिए we can use, we have discussed about this, getter and setter. We use getter and setter functions to access the private attributes, which getter just returns the private attributes value, and setter changes the value of any private attribute. But we cannot use getter and setter for constructors because it is the default function. It is not a simple function that just a getter and setter can, call a constructor. It's not that simple. So there is a technique for it. I will tell you later what that technique is called. First, let's do that. And first, let's see how simple it is. Okay? So we'll start with, some meaningful example. Let's first of all make a base class. You will inherit it later. Let's just assume for now. Let's assume that it is a base class, and I'll make a class primates. Okay? I'll call it class primate. And I guess you can already guess कौन इसको inherit करने वाला है? Of course, humans, because all of us have come from primates. So class primate, and inside this, I will declare some public attributes. Of course, constructor को मैं private करूँगा, but I want to define some private attributes. So let's keep the public blank for now and define some things here. To be added later. Okay. And let's leave that blank for now. And in the private attribute today, in the private scope, we are going to declare a constructor. Now the constructor is obviously going to be primate. And inside primate, this is our default constructor. So यहाँ पे मैं कुछ नहीं करूँगा. I'll just say cout and primate constructor called. So I hope that's very, nothing big deal here. It's just a default constructor. And okay, cout is having an error. Okay, so I have not used any library. Hashtag include it's stdc++.h and namespace. So that error is gone, and we have our simple constructor that is private. The only catch is the constructor is private. Rest, it's totally the concept that we are already aware. And so this is the constructor. इससे पहले कुछ attributes भी define करते हैं. And today let's not make any attribute public, because when we design real world applications, we want everything to be private. We want to secure our data as much as possible. And in the private attribute, I'm going to define, let's say, what can be some attributes of a primate. Let's say something called string, some recipe that the primate knows, maybe something like the name of the primate, and maybe I want to define, I hope this spelling of recipe is correct, but okay. And I have a okay, it's not going to be string, I want a float height. Okay. So in the private section of my class primate, I have 3 attributes, and I have a default constructor. This is my default constructor. And now let's also define a parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor. So let's quickly define a parameterized constructor. What I'm going to do is simply मैं ये 3 values के लिए कुछ arguments लूँगा. I define string name, string recipe, and of course float height. And inside this, ये print होना चाहिए. And then I'll just assign those values to my, height is equal to height. This name is equal to name, and this, what else did I take? Recipe is equal to recipe. Okay. And I hope till here, everyone of us are on the same page, right? We are all clear with what's being done now. What does it mean, getter and setter? Will you explain once again? Okay, Om Prakash, basically I'll explain you getter and setter very quickly, because this is something we discussed in the previous session. Basically, when we have any private attribute that cannot be directly accessed by the main, because it will of course say it is inaccessible, it's a compile time error. So to access these kind of private values, we define getter and setter functions. Now getter and setter are defined in the public section, and since it is already defined inside the class, they can access the private content. So what we do is we define a public function which is returning the private value, and this kind of approach of accessing the private values from a public function is called a getter, and this is called a setter, which changes the value of the private attribute from the public section with the public function. So in a nutshell, this is getter and setter. And I hope there are no other doubts. Here, private constructor won't make any issues. Yeah, that's a good question, Mansi. Here, private constructor won't make any issues. So let's see if it makes any issues. Let's define our main function in main void return 0. And what I'm going to do here is I'll say, what's the name of the class again? Primate. Okay. Copy credit. Primate. And let's say primate, I'll name it king. So I think you might have guessed why I'm naming it king, because that is short for King Kong. And yeah, now it gives an error, because definitely you can see the error primate, that means the constructor primate defined in class primate is inaccessible. And that's true, it is inaccessible because it is in the private section. So now let's do something. let's do something here. Now in the public section, I'm going to define a function. Let's say, okay, now what this function is going to do, guys, I'm going to define a function that returns an object of this class. So now, instead of directly calling the constructor, I will write a function that returns the object of this class. So ये function क्या करेगा? ये function can so if I define a function inside class, it can of course access anything that is private because ये इसके अंदर defined है. So what I'm going to do now is I'll define a function in the public section that will call the constructor from within the class and return that. So if it is going to return a an object of class primate, can someone quickly tell me what is going to be the return type of the function if I want to do something like this? So I'll leave that space blank till you answer, and here I'm going to name the function. Let's call it make primate. And in make primate, I'm going to take some attributes, the same which my constructor is going to take, and I'll say return something. Return primate. Exactly. We are going to return primate, but okay, someone. Okay. So, guys, what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to return a type of primate, but okay, sorry about that. Is someone speaking something? I can hear. Hello? Guys, are you hearing some background noise? I don't know who my. Okay, maybe some technical glitch on my side.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so guys, I'm going to do something here. I have written this because I was waiting for the answer in comment section. So yeah, as someone answered, I'm going to have to return something of type primate. So I will return, my return type is going to be primate and an asterisk mark because I'm going to return a pointer to type primate. And हम pointer इसलिए use कर रहे हैं because एक object की address return करने वाले हैं, right? Now inside this, what I'm going to do is I'll say return new primate. And as simple as that, it is going to call the constructor, this constructor, from within the class. We have never done this before, and this is a technique how you restrict an object creation. So you make the constructor private, and then you define a public function which can call the constructor. And inside this, I'm gonna paste all these values again, so that ये values directly इसको pass हो जाए. And I hope this is this is clear to everyone. Is this function clear to everyone? I have a function that returns a primate kind of value, and it is a pointer type because हम यहाँ पे new use कर रहे हैं. We have seen this new operator before in array declaration. Whenever we wanted to create an array of some particular size, we used to use this new operator. It returns a pointer of whatever value we pass next to it. So since after new we are telling new primate, it means create a new object of this constructor. So use this constructor to create a new object, and then this function is going to return that. So I hope. Okay, repeat. Okay, so Varun, what's happening here is basically since हमने constructor को private कर दिया है, and if and now I see in my main function, I cannot directly call my primate constructor because it is inaccessible. It is private. It is declared in the private scope. So to access it, I'm going to define a function in the public section, which will create a new object. I'm writing new here so that not every time it should create a new object whenever I call this function make primate. So whenever I call this function which is publicly accessible make primate, ये मेरे लिए एक new object create करेगा using this constructor. And we already learnt about new operator. New operator क्या करता है? इसके बाद आप जो भी use करते हो data type. If I would have written here new int, then it would have created a new integer for me. Basically एक space allocate करता है. And here as I'm saying new primate, then ये primate का constructor उठाएगा इसी values को use करके जो मैं इसमें pass कर रहा हूँ, it will do the usual constructor thing जैसे भी constructor work करता है in normal classes, and it will return an object. And how it will return? Because मैं उसको return के बाद लिखा हूँ. So basically it is creating an object of type primate and returning it, and hence this return type primate asterisk, because we know that new gives us a pointer. So yeah, default constructor won't be called here. If you want to call the default constructor, you can also would have written here return new primate. That works too. Default constructor is not needed here. It could have been done, but okay, I'm returning the I just want to call the parameterized constructor. So but still this code, there is something missing in this code. Let's look what is that. So now here what I'll do is primate king. Now I have to use an asterisk operator here because मुझे एक address return आने वाली है. And what I will do is primate king is equal to new. Okay, I don't have to write new here. I just have to call this class primate. Call this function make primate defined in class primate. Now here's the problem, guys. When normally जब हम एक object create कर लेते हैं, normally जब हम किसी class की अगर मैं normally primate object ऐसे create करा होता, let's say obj, and then I have to call a function which is defined inside the primate class. तो बहुत normally हम लोग ऐसे call करते हैं उसको object dot function. So this is how you call a function that is defined inside a class after you have already created an object. But here you just try to understand the problem that is existing right now. This is what that could be done after creating an object. अगर आपने object already create कर लिया है, then you can use this method to actually call a function. But now the object is not created at first place. Object तो भी create ही नहीं हो सकता, right? Because constructor ही private है. So we cannot use this method to call a function. We have to use something else. And this is where we can directly call it from the class. We can directly call it as a member of the class, not an object. And how to do that? We will use scope resolution operator. So I'll say something like this, primate king. This is just the data type क्योंकि मुझे एक pointer return होने वाला of type primate asterisk. So वैसे ही variable मैंने create कर दिया यहाँ पे. And here I'll call a function which is defined in class primate. And then I will use the scope resolution operator to tell the compiler that call this function which is defined inside primate class. So मुझे specifically बोलना पड़ेगा that this belongs to the primate class since I have not already created an object. Now I know that the name of the function is make primate, and इसके अंदर I will pass the values जो भी ये लेता है, a name, recipe, and height. So let's give it a name. Its name is obviously King Kong. And और क्या था? Sorry, forgot. Recipe. So the recipe is going to be King Kong क्या खाता है? King Kong eats humans. No, that will be too barbaric. I'll say bananas. And some height. Godzilla versus King Kong में King Kong का height 337 feet था. So I'll take 337. And just like that, we called a function, a public function, which in turn calls our private constructor. So इस तरीके से हमने थोड़ा restrict करा. ठीक है, अब देखते हैं. अब इसमें एक और error है. Let me quickly show you what's the error. Now if I so any doubt still here? Can we make an array as an object from this? Can we make an array as an object from this? Yeah, totally. You can make an array of objects. You just have to first of all create a array, and then you have to use for loop, and for every index you have to assign this. For every index you have to do this. To every index you have to assign an object. So that is how you create an object of array of objects. Okay, so coming back to the question, there is still an error. And if I see here, it's basically telling a non-static member reference must be relative to a specific object. The problem is, अभी ये बोल रहा है कि you know, this function does not belong to the class. The make primate does not belong to the class, it belongs to the object. Because हमने पहले भी देखा था, when we want to share something between the objects, when we want something to be a absolute member of the class, not directly an object, वो class का property होना चाहिए, not a property of an object, then we have to use static. So anyone remembers that? What static used to do? Static used to store it in the heap memory so that this can be directly accessed. Now the thing is, जब मैं किसी फंक्शन को स्टैटिक लिख देता हूँ, इट मीन्स इसको एक्सेस करने के लिए, जिस फंक्शन को मैंने स्टैटिक डिक्लेयर करा है, टू एक्सेस इट आई डोंट नीड टू क्रिएट एन ऑब्जेक्ट ऑफ द क्लास. आई कैन डायरेक्टली एक्सेस इट एज अ मेंबर ऑफ द class itself, not an object. Are you guys clear with this concept? Yeah, only one copy, exactly. Assigns memory only once. So what this is doing is this is storing this function in a heap memory space so that ये directly without any object creation ये access हो सके. So that is why I'm using static here. And the moment I declare static, now the error is gone. Because now it can be accessed directly without any object creation, because this is an absolute member of the class. ये function, it directly belongs to the class. इसको कोई object नहीं चाहिए. It will overrule any object. It will directly belong to the class. So I'm emphasizing it again, and that's how we created our class. Okay, that is the name of the function, right? Diamond.cpp. And if I execute it now, you can see primate constructor called, and that is exactly what is happening. We called a public function जो हमारे लिए call कर रहा था the private constructor, and it is working fine now. And now let's make some use of it. मैं directly, now let's do what we wanted to do. मुझे directly return नहीं करना. I first want to do some checks. If height, now we know that any primate at least 1 meter का होगा. So if it is greater than equal to 1, then return this. Only then allow object creation, else return null. So अब देखते हैं क्या हो रहा है. Now till now this method was working fine. So very quickly I'm just going to make it let's say my monkey is 0.5 meters tall, and now if I try to create a function, it will give me a very big, it should give me, okay, it printed nothing. Because constructor call ही नहीं हुआ. एंड कंस्ट्रक्टर क्यों नहीं कॉल हुआ? बिकॉज कंस्ट्रक्टर वाज प्राइवेट, एंड उससे पहले बीच में ये फंक्शन कॉल होता है. सबसे पहले इसने चेक करा दैट इट इज नॉट पॉसिबल टू डू बिकॉज दिस कंडीशन इज नॉट ट्रू, सो इट रिटर्न नल एंड नथिंग वाज प्रिंटेड. एंड थोड़ा सा इंटरेस्टिंग करते हैं इसको. राइट नाउ इट इज नॉट वेरी विजिबल व्हाट्स हैपनिंग बिहाइंड द सीन. सो लेट्स डिफाइन अ पब्लिक फंक्शन void who am I. So let's define a function who am I. Inside this, ये क्या करेगा? It will just print out cout I am, name print करना अपना, I am this dot name, and bear me because I'm a height tall. Okay. So let me just quickly tell you what I have done here. Basically मैंने एक function declare करा which prints garbage, and this is just a function to make sure that our so that we can test out whether our object was created or not. And here's a quick trick, guys. When you have declared something, any object, see what we are doing here. Now we are not using a simple variable to create an object. Right now our object is inside a pointer. So how do you access any value of an object which is as a pointer? To do that, you just have to use arrow operators, right? Now using arrow operators, I can access some values. So what I'll do here is I'll call who am I function, which is defined in the class. So since the king, this pointer is of type primate and वो properly यूज भी हो रहा है, क्रिएट भी हो रहा है. So it can call who am I, which is defined again inside the class. So it might look bit confusing. You can, if you have any doubts, ping me in the chat, or you can also watch the video again and feel free to ping any chance. I know it is pretty confusing. Why it cannot be done without static? Can you explain once? Yeah, okay, Manshi. So why you cannot why this cannot be done without the static keyword here? So the reason is you have to declare it static, because if I don't, then this will only belong to an object. If I do not define it static, then ये primate को access करने के लिए पहले तुम्हें object create करना पड़ेगा, and then you can use object dot make primate. जो भी object create होगी, object dot make, जो ये जो नाम है ना इस function का, it can only be called by this method. If something is not static, then the only way to access it is first create an object and then access it by as a member of that object. That is how we normally access everything else, right? जैसे ये function, this is not static. तो इसको call करने के लिए I can say obj dot who am I. That is how we normally call any object of a class. But if the constructor is itself private, देखो हमारा constructor ही private है, right? So object create हो नहीं सकता. And if object create नहीं हो सकता, then how can we call a class? How can we call this function which is defined inside a class? So to do that, we have to make it static. And when we define something static, then it can be called even without creating an object of the class. It can be directly called like this. With scope resolution operators, you can call it, because now it does not belong to the object, it belongs to the class itself. So we are basically telling that this is जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल जो तुम्हारा दैट्स लेट्स गो बैक टू द सेम एग्जाम्पल. You were designing a house and you have hired an architect. So the architect built an idea for you, but the architect is not, he will not give you the idea unless you pay him. So you pay him and that architect handles you the idea, and then you can use that idea to make your house. So this function here is your architect. It is first checking some condition. If it is possible, then it will handle the idea to you. It will return that idea. And when you have the idea, you can totally use everything inside it. You can use this height, name, recipe, you can use that who my function. But unless that idea has been handled out to you, you cannot use it. So you can think of this like the architect. And the static keyword allows you to implement that feature, so that even without an object, a function can be called. So I hope that is clear to everyone. Can everyone ping in the chat once if this clear, if this concept is clear to you, why static is needed here, and why are we doing this, so that we can restrict, any object creation. Is this clear to everyone? Okay, cool, cool. Okay, that's very and that makes me very happy, because it was also pretty tough to explain. And with that, we have understood how this is working, and let's quickly execute this code once and see if it's working fine. Now we'll see it will print an error that been terminated because of address boundary error. And why, forget about this fish, this is just my terminal. The error is address boundary error. And why is this happening? एक बार कोड को अच्छे से देखते हैं. हमने पास करा the attribute 0.5, and if I look in the our architect or this particular method, I will tell you what this method is exactly called. That's a very beautiful name for it. The reason is that the height variable was 0.5 and it is not passing our condition. Just basis pay we were allowing object creation, so an object is not being created. Instead we are just returning null. Okay, we are just returning null. And now the problem is this null value is stored in this king pointer. So now this king pointer is basically nothing. It is actually just storing null like this. And now obviously this is going to create an error. We cannot use null who am I, because null is just a garbage value. उसके अंदर कोई function defined है नहीं. And that is the reason why we are getting address boundary error, because we are pointing to a address that does not exist. It is a null value. So to do that, let's do a quick check. If king not equal to null, So it means we are just checking that if then object creation was successful, if object was successfully created, then king mein null nahi hogi, right? It will be some meaningful value which was being returned by make primate. Only then print out the value. Sorry about that. Only then print out the value. Else else हमें कुछ करने की जरूरत है नहीं. Else हम यहीं पे डालते हैं. Else before returning null, just say cout invalid primate. Sorry. So what's happening here? When object creation was not successful, it will just print out a message and it will return null. And यहाँ पे मुझे else का जरूरत है नहीं क्योंकि message मैंने ऊपर ही print कर दिया. So now let's quickly test out. Basically अभी भी मैं एक invalid input दे रहा हूँ. 0.5 will 0.5 will not allow object creation. And if I check my code now, we'll get a meaningful message rather than an error. Sorry, invalid primate. So I hope this is clear to everyone, this concept. How you can restrict object creation and use your own conditionals. Here now you can use your own, you can define, just मैंने height check करा, you can make your own classes and then you can define whether to allow object creation or not with this technique. And now I'll tell you that this technique that we have just implemented, we have made the constructor private. We have made the constructor private here, and then we are using our own conditionals to allow object creation using a static function, which is again public. This method, this is something that you actually is done in industry, because industry when industries they make real applications. जैसे Netflix is something that people are selling. Netflix आपको अपनी service sell कर रही है for lots of rupees. Like it is expensive, right? You have to pay 800 or 300 जो भी price है. So it is expensive. It cannot allow a public access to everyone. So it has to make its own जो core structure है, it makes it static, makes it private, and then maybe कोई static function होगी जहाँ पे आप payment करके उसको access कर सकते हो. So this is one of the techniques that is followed everywhere, and this technique of actually restricting object creation is called factory builder method. ठीक, this technique को बोलते हैं factory builder method. It is a philosophy. This method जिस तरीके से हमने करा, इस technique, इस philosophy को factory builder method बोलते हैं. And this function which is actually allowing us to create object is called the factory method, because this is the method in which object is being created. So not very hard to guess why it is called factory method, because it creates object. So that is all about restricting and using conditionals to allow object creation. So having done this, I hope there are no doubts as I can see in the chat. So let's move on to the next topic. The next topic will be what to do next. Okay, let's learn about multiple and multi-level inheritance. So definitely that's going to be pretty straightforward. Basically we have here our class primate, and what I'm going to do now, I'll make its first child of class primate. Why I'm writing a first child? I would have written here just a simple child. I'm writing first child because we are going to do multi-level inheritance. So child का child भी create करेंगे. And यहाँ पे I'm going to say class and primates में से who have inherited from primates. Let's name our class caveman. And inside caveman, I'm going to say that this is inheriting from class, from public class, sorry, not class, public, or where it is, primate. Yeah, why do I forget that name? Primate. Okay. So basically we have a class caveman which is inheriting from class primate, and inside that we will the caveman is going to have some of its own attributes. क्योंकि हमें inheritance में पता है, right? What inheritance allows us to do is, now the class caveman is going to have all the features जो भी primate के पास था, and other than that it can use all that infrastructure that primate is providing एंड उसको यूज करके वो और बेटर चीजें कर सकता है. सो ये सारी चीजें तो हमारे पास हैं. हाइट, नेम, रेसिपी ऑलरेडी केवमैन के पास भी आ गई. अदर देन दैट वी कैन यूज सम अदर यूजफुल प्रॉपर्टीज लाइक bool tail exists. So this is the useful property that I'm giving to my caveman. And इसको एक constructor दे देते हैं caveman. And inside caveman, ये just a default constructor, nothing very fancy here. Default constructor. And in default constructor, I'll say tail exists is equal to false, because I think that is the only difference between any caveman and a primate, that cavemans don't have tails. Okay? And there is of course an error, because the constructor that is defined inside the previous class, that is our parent class, is inaccessible. So the child class cannot access it. And हमने एक टेक्निक पढ़ा था to call, this is something we also discussed yesterday, class Netflix India was inheriting from class Netflix core. The example that we did when we learned inheritance, and what we used to do to call the parent constructor is, after defining the child constructor, we used to do this colon operator, and then we used to call the parent constructor. So can we do that today? Can anyone ping in the chat? Can we do that today? Can we call the parent constructor from, the parent constructor is this primate. So can we call this primate from the child class? Can you quickly ping in the chat? Is that possible?
Some there are answers like that is not possible. So what will be your views about that?
Exactly.
And guys, I am back in the session. Sorry that I was not present in the session for today, as there was some of the meeting with some of the industry persons. So let Divisam complete this session, and we will start with another topic from tomorrow.
Okay, so we have some mixed answers. No, 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 as constructor is private, and Tia is telling possible. And yeah, also Isha is telling, I think yes. Okay, so of course it is possible. And for that, we'll learn a different technique today, a different concept. It's called friend. So, guys, we already know, we discussed about public and private. When something is public, it can be accessed by everyone. And so when something is private, it cannot be accessed by anyone other than inside the class. फिर एक तरीका होता है उसको protected करने का. So if I make it protected, it will be available in, in the child classes. But मुझे protected नहीं करना. I just want to make it the most secure version. I just have to keep it private. So what do I do? Now the problem is, if I make it protected, this method will instantly start working protected. Now the moment I make it protected, यहाँ से error चली जाना चाहिए. Expected an identifier. Okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah. अभी error चले जाएगा. Because yeah, okay, the error is now gone. You can see, and that is because मैंने इसको protected कर दिया, so it is accessible now. Because when we make something protected, it directly cannot be accessed in the main function. Main function से अभी भी वो access नहीं हो सकता. But when anything is declared in the protected section, it can be accessed by the child classes. So this kind of is a temporary fix. But the problem is, when I make these values protected, when I declare this in protected, anything that inherits, any simple class that inherits this class, सिर्फ उसको एक लाइन लिखना है, inherit as in, उसको सिर्फ ये छोटी सी लाइन लिखनी है. Any class can then access my values. I don't want that to happen. I just want कि only class caveman can inherit it. So what to do? Now here comes the concept of friends. And what friends does is, inside your private section, just write one line, declare friend. Declare the class that you want to give access to as a friend. So when you declare someone as a friend, they can access everything that is private, everything that is protected, everything that is public. They can access everything. No access specifier can now stop them to access. And the way you declare them friend is very simple. Just have to say friend, and in as in friend, then guess this was the syntax. Friend, sorry, class, and the name of the class to which you want to grant access. So since I just want to grant access to caveman, I'll say caveman. Cool. Okay. Now what this does is, now caveman will not have any restrictions. Any restrictions imposed by private, any restrictions imposed by public will be overridden by caveman. Caveman can access everything, and you can see we have no errors now. So that is how you allow any class to access the private attributes. It can access everything, all the private attributes as well as private constructors, सब कुछ. So having done that, having declared this class as private, we have called the constructor, and okay, cool. The constructor is called. तो कुछ values भी डाल देते हैं इसमें. बहुत ज़्यादा values नहीं डालूंगा, सिर्फ वही डालूंगा जो ये already input में ले रहा था. So I'll say caveman, and I'll pass those values. I'll pass those values to the primate. So we already know about this technique. This is how you call the constructor of the parent class from within the child class. And since this is declared as a friend class, it can access this private constructor. तो मैं यहाँ पे directly ये values को paste करूँगा, and I'll remove the data types because now I'm just passing them as arguments. And बस हो गया. First child class अच्छे से define हो गया. It is also a friend, so it can access this private constructor. इसकी उसके अलावा इसका खुद का भी एक वैल्यू है जो उसको मैं उसी कंस्ट्रक्टर में इनिशियलाइज कर रहा हूँ. एंड नाउ इफ आई क्रिएट अ क्लास, इफ आई क्रिएट एन ऑब्जेक्ट ऑफ टाइप caveman, let's name him caveman, nothing fancy. Let's name him seaman, and that is equal to, sorry about that, this is the I was going to write new again, so sorry for that. Caveman, seaman, and seaman is going to take some inputs like maybe Tarzan. Tarzan was a caveman, right? His food was something going to be, let's say, meat. His diet is meat, and his height is, let's say, 10 meters. No, that's too much, 2 meters. Let me fix King Kong. King Kong बहुत ज़्यादा छोटा हो गया, 337. Cool. And now we can also access this functions. Function जो कि parent class में define था, function in primate class, we can also access through the child, because now caveman has inherited primate class. So I can also say cman dot who am I, and let's quickly verify if this is working. And you will also be surprised to see something जो हमने inheritance से पहले नहीं देखा. You can see that primate constructor called, okay, line change नहीं हुआ, wait, line has not been changed, that is weird. Yeah, of course मैंने end line नहीं लिखा, so छोड़ो, back section. And what I'm going to do here is जब भी caveman call होता है, I will also say that inside the caveman constructor I'll say caveman constructor called, so I'll say cout caveman constructor called. Cool. So I hope this is clear to everyone. We can inherit protected. Yeah, exactly, Isha. We can inherit protected by making primate a friend class of caveman. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you had already given the correct answer. So kudos for that. And I guess this is clear to everyone. And now here's the weird part. We are creating one object of class primate and one object of class caveman. But let's look at the output. Primate constructor is called, and its value is, its function is being called, so it's okay. Primate constructor called, we can see primate constructor called, yeah, it worked. So this statement is working. After that, we printed king, who am I? So I am King Kong, and fear me cause I'm a 337 meters tall. Sorry, I missed the units. And after that, here's the weird part. The weird thing is caveman, we are creating an object of class caveman, but the primate constructor is also called with that, and after that caveman is called, and after that it is printing I am Tarzan and fear me cause I am 2 meter tall. Lol. So here the thing is that जब भी आप किसी भी चाइल्ड क्लास का ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट करते हो, फर्स्ट इट creates an object internally. The compiler handles that. First it creates calls the private constructor, I mean the parent constructor, जो यहाँ पे kind of visible भी है. First caveman is calling primate. First this thing runs, first this thing is executed, and after that this constructor is executed, because it is logical. If you think that if you think like जैसे आप सोच भी सकते हो, अगर parents do not exist then child cannot exist, right? So first a parent is created, and after that the child is created. So that is the reason that this is the order in which they are being created. So whenever I create a caveman constructor, it will first call the parent and then the child. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Yeah, is the session till 7 p.m. only? Only, okay. So if we cannot complete the this concept, we can take 10 to 15 minutes extra. We can continue it in the next session. No issues with that. And because it is a child class, yeah, exactly. So this is clear to everyone,
Devicom,
I guess. Yeah.
Devicom, can you confirm how much of the topic is left as of now? Which of the
As
topic
of
are left?
now, only the diamond problem is left, and with that, with diamond, I will also discuss about the virtual keyword.
Okay, okay. So let me overtake it from here, and let me present the diamond problem and error handling as well, so that it will create a decorum for the session, and we can cover a lot more about that.
Yeah, okay, we can discuss about diamond in next class. Okay, yeah, sure.
Yes,
Accept my hands. Okay.
yes. So guys, let's just
Doubt
make
once
exception.
again.
Yes, yes. You can clear
If
all
we
the doubts.
create a if we create a child class object, there no need to create parent class object. No, no, Rajesh, that is what you're just telling the exact opposite. If you want to create a child class, first of all, a parent will be created, and then using that, the child will be called. Because you can see here, this function that I'm calling inside, this who am I function. This who am I function actually belongs to the class primate. Okay, this belongs to class primate. You can clearly see, and I'm also utilizing all that functions. So ऐसे बहुत possibilities हैं, when you create a child, it will be utilizing some attributes or some functions which are present in the present in the parent class. And that is the reason why a dummy parent is created, and using that values a child is created, so that there is going to be no problem while running the code. So it can utilize everything that belongs to child and everything that belongs to parent. And this is the advantage of object oriented programming. Without writing the functions, मुझे ये functions जो था, क्या था, हु एम आई, मुझे हु एम आई को इस केवमैन के अंदर डिफाइन नहीं करना पड़ा, बट आई कैन स्टिल यूज इट, राइट? सी मैन कैन यूज हु एम आई, and that is the advantage, and that is the reason for this output. First a parent has to be created, and then only the child can be created. Okay, to you, Shadid, from you. Hello, Shad.
Divisam, we can also cover the multiple inheritance today. Let us make the session till 7:30 only. So I will give a brief glimpse about the error handling. Then you can continue with the multiple inheritance and the diamond problem as well.
Okay, cool, sure.
Okay. Okay. So guys, now let us look at some of the topic regarding error handling. तो अभी सबसे पहले एक वर्ड आता है हमारे सामने, एरर. एरर क्या होता है? व्हाट इज एरर? एनीवन नो व्हाट इज एरर? व्हाट डू यू थिंक इज एरर? एरर क्या है? सबसे मेन चीज तो पहले तो ये पता होना चाहिए ना कि एरर है क्या. Guys, please reply in the chat. What is error? What do you understand by error? Yes, which we usually hate in programming. Thakur has given the correct answer. Meaningless things in the compiler. Yes, yes, these are completely correct. अब हम देखते हैं एरर के भी ना हमारे बहुत सारे टाइप होते हैं. लेट अस सी कि वो एरर के टाइप्स क्या क्या होते हैं और how we can differentiate between different type of errors and what error is, हम कौन कौन से error को हम face करते हैं mainly. So there are mainly three type of errors. One is syntax error, one is logical error, and one is runtime error. हमारी ये three main errors हैं that occur. तो syntax error में क्या होता है? Syntax error is the error whose grammar is incorrect. Syntax के अंदर हम क्या देखते हैं? Grammar. Like we have a program to write C out, but I am writing COUP. So COUP is a syntax error क्योंकि COUP तो कहीं पर defined नहीं है, it is not defined in the grammar. So जो defined नहीं है, which is not defined as it is, that comes under syntax error. So syntax error, I think syntax error will be clear to everyone. Anyone facing any of the issues regarding the syntax error? Syntax error is also called compile time error. Yes, syntax error is also called compile time error. MD, you are completely correct. It is also called as compile time error because एक syntax मेरा गलत होगा. Because if I am writing COUP instead of COUT, it will give me error at compile time. ठीक है, अब ये compile time पे error देगा तो it is also known as compile time error. अब देखते हैं logical error पे. अब logical error क्या होता है? Let me create a box for logical error also. तो अब logical error क्या है? Suppose I have to calculate sum of two numbers. तो मैंने क्या किया? Result is equal to A plus B plus 5. मेरे को A plus B का सम निकालना था, but I have mistakenly written result is equal to A plus B plus 5. तो A plus B plus 5 it will estimate, मतलब कि ये compile time पास कर जाएगा, it will run at run time only. But हम जो यहाँ पे logic यूज कर रहे हैं, actually logic was A plus B. हम यहाँ पे logic ही गलत यूज कर रहे हैं. And logical error are the errors which are caused by the programmer. अब जो लॉजिकल एरर और सिंटैक्स एरर हैं, ये दोनों हमारे एरर होते हैं. दे फॉल अंडर द कैटेगरी ऑफ प्रोग्रामर क्योंकि ये गलती प्रोग्रामर कर सकता है. दीज आर द एरर्स व्हिच कैन बी मेड बाय द प्रोग्रामर. कि उसने करना a plus b था but he mistakenly did a plus b plus 5. So this is an error. So this is a logical error and it is done by the programmer. अब हमको syntax error को ठीक करना होता है. Now let us also come at the part where we correct it. तो syntax error को हमको ठीक करना होता है. तो इसके लिए होता है हमारे पास compiler. So what compiler does? Compiler will tell if our program is giving a syntax error. To check logical error and to correct it, we have a debugger. या फिर हम ड्राई रन कर सकते हैं प्रोग्राम को अपने. वी विल ड्राई रन इट एंड टेस्ट द रिजल्ट इफ इट इज करेक्ट और नॉट. तो दैट इज लॉजिकल एरर जब हमको लॉजिकल एरर करना. बट व्हाट इज रन टाइम एरर नाउ? अब रन टाइम एरर क्या है? अभी यूजर ने एक प्रोग्राम बना दिया. कंसिडर एक एग्जांपल करते हैं हम. कंसिडर एक प्रोग्राम बना दिया फॉर डिवीजन. ठीक है, मैंने डिवीजन के लिए एक प्रोग्राम बना दिया. रिजल्ट इज इक्वल टू a डिवाइडेड बाय b. अब यूजर को a एंटर करना था, यूजर को b एंटर करना था. द लॉजिक वाज कंप्लीटली करेक्ट, द सिंटैक्स वाज कंप्लीटली करेक्ट, बट यूजर हैज एंटर्ड 0. So 5 by 0 does not exist. So this is the runtime error which is encountered at the runtime by the user. This is encountered by the user and not by the programmer or any of the coder. So जो runtime error हैं, they are mostly encountered by the user. अब यूजर को रन टाइम एरर एनकाउंटर्ड नाउ. सपोज वी एंटर 5 by 0 और यूजर को एरर एनकाउंटर हुआ एंड अवर प्रोग्राम हैज स्टॉप्ड. हमारा प्रोग्राम स्टॉप कर गया. और एक चीज देखो ना, देयर माइट बी सम ऑफ द इम्पोर्टेंट डाटा. व्हाट डज डिबगर डू? ओके लेट अस कम टू दैट क्वेश्चन एज वेल. जो हमारा डिबगर होता है, इन डिबगर वी रन द प्रोग्राम टू सी इफ इट इज वर्किंग करेक्टली और नॉट. हम प्रोग्राम को रन करते हैं, बस जैसे हमने सी आउट डाल के हमने रन किया. We are seeing if the variables are having correct values or if they are performing the right operation. Like I have entered a equal to 2 and b equal to 5. So 2 plus 5 should be 7. It should not be 12. Okay, so that is the thing that our debugger is doing. अब हम इसी पे आते हैं अपने वापस से. अब यूजर ने एक वैल्यू एंटर की 5 by 0 एंड अवर प्रोग्राम इज स्टॉपिंग. अब मेरा प्रोग्राम यहाँ पे टर्मिनेट हो गया है. द प्रोग्राम इज टर्मिनेटेड एज ऑफ नाउ. अब वो टर्मिनेट होने के बाद it will give some of the errors to the user. अब वो वहीं पर रुक जाएगा और यूजर ने जो इतना अपना इम्पोर्टेंट डाटाबेस डाला होगा, द इम्पोर्टेंट डाटाबेस विल बी लॉस्ट. अगर मेरे प्रोग्राम के ही उसमें है तो. तो व्हाट वी डू, हम कुछ मैकेनिज्म प्लान करते हैं, वी शेड्यूल सम ऑफ द मैकेनिज्म, and then the output, after the value, after we encounter a runtime error, we give the user that this is the error and we can perform some other operations as well. So that is why we are using the exception handling is for handling the runtime errors only. तो अब हमको runtime errors को handle करना है। आप runtime errors को handle करने के लिए we use try catch. Debugger error नहीं देता है. Yes, I know debugger does not give error, but debugger helps us by dry running the program, and then the programmer can identify the error. Debugger does not give the error. The programmer can identify the error based on the dry run. So it is the programmer who resolves the error. Okay, तो अब try catch पे आते हैं. Try catch को we can consider try catch as if else statement. अब if else से हम try catch को कैसे compare करते हैं? Let us see that. अब मेरे पास try catch था. अब मैंने क्या किया, एक मेरा कोड बनाया एंड मैंने कोड में क्या लिखा, मैंने एक फंक्शन ले लेता हूँ मैं, जैसे मैंने एक फंक्शन बना दिया डिवीजन, और वो डिवीजन फंक्शन 2 वैल्यूज एक्सेप्ट कर रहा है ए एंड बी. ठीक है, अब मैंने एक कंडीशन लगा दी, कभी भी एक मैं सिंपल एक इफ कंडीशन लगा रहा हूँ, इफ बी इज इक्वल टू 0, तो यहाँ पे सी आउट कर देगा, ये प्रिंट कर देगा कि एरर हैज अकर्ड. और एल्स होगा तो एल्स मेरा क्या करेगा, ए बाय बी को रिटर्न कर देगा. ठीक है, तो अब मेरा ये जो काम किया, दिस इज द सिंपल वर्क ऑफ ट्राई कैच, कि हमने एक वैल्यू ट्राई की, वी हैव ट्राइड समथिंग, एंड इफ द कंडीशन इज सेटिस्फाइड वी आर यूजिंग दिस, एंड एल्स वी आर यूजिंग दिस. so try catch can be compared to if else for easy understanding. Try catch are not if else, but they can be compared to it if else. So do not confuse try catch with if else. Actually try catch are not if else. This is a thing that you should understand. तो अब हम क्या करते हैं, हम ट्राई कैच देखते हैं कि हम ट्राई कैच क्या होता है. अब मैंने क्या किया, मैंने ट्राई किया. सबसे पहले तो ट्राई मैंने क्या किया कि हमारा जो आ रहा है एरर, कि हमारा बी जीरो है कि नहीं है, बी जीरो भी है कि नहीं, तो हमने ये ट्राई किया. अगर ये है देन try catch is taken from Java in C++. Not actually C++ was developed earlier, and after C++ Java was developed. So we can say that Java has taken try catch from C++. C++ was the base language before Java. तो अब हमने क्या किया, ट्राई हमने ये किया और हमने कैच कर लिया. After trying, only the catch will execute. If the try is not try result to false, the catch will not execute. और इफ एल्स में हमारा क्या होता था कि अगर हमारी ये कंडीशन चल गई तो ये नहीं चलेगी. बट अगर हमारे इसमें ट्राई में एरर आता है, ओनली देन कैच विल एग्जीक्यूट. अगर हमारे ट्राई में कोई एरर नहीं आता है, देन कैच विल नॉट एग्जीक्यूट. तो अब हम देखते हैं कि इसको कोडिंग के थ्रू भी देखते हैं. एक सिंपल सा कोड करते हैं. लेट अस क्रिएट विद दिस फंक्शन एंड लेट अस कीप ट्राई कैच अ सिंपल थिंग. Yes, try block generate the exception. Try block runtime exception या runtime errors generate करेगा, and the catch block will be there to handle the exceptions and errors. अब इसको हम कोड से भी देख लेते हैं. सिंपल से लेट अस डू एक सिंपल कोड अबाउट इट. तो हम क्या करते हैं, हमने एक एरर हैंडलिंग का एक बहुत सिंपल सा कोड लिखा है. stack include iostream. Yes, we will write code for upcoming runtime error that will be processed at the runtime by the user using namespace std print main. And what I am writing now, let me write a function int division, and it is accepting two of the arguments, int a and int b, and what it is returning, a by b. अब मैं एक सिंपल सा कोड लिखता हूँ कि जो हमारा एक इट विल बी वेरी सिंपल कोड. ठीक है, अब मैंने क्या किया, int n1 n2. I have declared two variables. I am asking the user to input the variables, and हम क्या करें, we are outputting the result, the out, divi division of n1 comma n2, and we are printing it out and we are using return 0. और इसके बाद मान लो कि मैंने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट काम कर रखा था, दैट माय मैसेज वाज टू प्रिंट out hello. This was a very important thing. अगर ये मेरा नहीं हुआ तो all my database for the program will be lost. Let us consider as, ठीक है। तो अभी हमने क्या किया, let me compile it. तो compile करके चेक करते हैं कि इसके अंदर कोई एरर है कि नहीं। C++001 error handling. Let me compile it. Can we define our own exceptions? Yes, we can define our own exceptions, Mansi. Today we will get an overview about error handling, and tomorrow we will cover the error handling in great detail. So no need to worry, you will get to know how to define our own exception. अब मैंने इसको रन भी किया, रन करने के बाद इसने मेरे से 2 नंबर्स मांगे, आई एम एंटरिंग 15 and 6. चलो 15 and 5 करते हैं, इसने 3 और hello रिटर्न कर दिया। My program is working completely fine. I am using 20 and 4. Now even my program is working completely fine. There was no syntax error, there was no logical error. But now if I enter 10 and 0, my program will stop because it was an error, it was a runtime error. So a runtime error occurred और मेरी ये cout hello line कभी print ही नहीं हुई. And if the cout hello line was not printed, I have lost an important part of my database. मेरा program चल रहा था and it stopped suddenly and I have missed all the important part of my database. मेरा प्रोग्राम जो चल रहा था इस तक लेट, और किसी आप इंडस्ट्री में काम कर रहे हो लाइक गूगल, तो गूगल के सर्वर दे आर वर्किंग 24/7, दे कैन नॉट स्टॉप देयर सर्वर and till the time suppose a server was working from past 1 year and the 1 year data is completely lost, so this will cause a little problem. तो हम क्या करते हैं, we will return something. तो अब हमने क्या किया, we will use try catch. so what we will do, हमने इसको try में डाल दिया, we will try it, ठीक है। और हमने इसको जैसे ही try में डाला, अब इसके अंदर अगर कोई एरर आएगा then we will catch it. How we will catch it, we will catch it and I will accept an int n can be any of the, consider it as error number, consider n as an error number, and I am outing cout error occurred. I am printing this out and let us see अब ये काम करेगा कि नहीं। Now let us see, ठीक है। अब हम इसको रन करते हैं, C++001 .a. तो अभी हमने क्या इनपुट किया, जैसे मैंने एंटर किया 10 and 0. So will it work? Let us see will it work or not. अभी भी it will not work क्योंकि हमने ट्राई कर दिया, कैच कर दिया, बट हमने कहीं पे इसको बताया ही नहीं कि एरर कहाँ आया है, क्या कुछ हुआ एरर में, ठीक है। तो इसको एक सिंपल करते हैं, लेट मी स्टोर इट rather than directly printing it, let me store it and result equal to, and then I am printing it out result, ठीक है। अभी अब हमने इसके अंदर हमने ट्राई तो कर लिया बट वी हैव नॉट इंस्ट्रक्टेड कि इसको ट्राई कैसे करना है, तो हम फंक्शन की हेल्प से कर रहे हैं। तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वी विल इंस्ट्रक्ट द फंक्शन कि हमारे पास कोई एरर आ सकता है, तो एरर आ सकता है तो वी विल इंस्ट्रक्ट द फंक्शन। तो हम फंक्शन को कैसे बताएंगे, थ्रो, फंक्शन को हम बोलेंगे अगर कोई भी एरर आता है देन थ्रो समथिंग टू द कैच स्टेटमेंट, कि उसको पता लगे कि कोई एरर आ रहा है, बिकॉज एरर हमारा किस पार्ट में आ रहा है, एरर इज नॉट इन दिस पार्ट, error is neither in this part because it is printing and it is directly accepting the return value. हमारा error कहाँ पे आ सकता है, error हमारा फंक्शन में आ रहा है क्योंकि a by b तो हमारा फंक्शन में ही हो रहा है ना, the actual thing is happening in the function, so we are instructing the function to throw the error. तो हम क्या करेंगे, हमने इसको बोला कि एक इंटीजर को थ्रो कर, ठीक है। अब हमने इसको तो बोल दिया कि इंटीजर को थ्रो कर दे, फंक्शन ने बोल दिया बिल्कुल आई कैन थ्रो एन इंटीजर। अरे थ्रो यूज कर रहे हैं ये, लेट अस प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड इट फ्रॉम वेरी बेसिक, आई एम शोइंग इट फ्रॉम वेरी बेसिक ओनली। तो मैं थ्रो भी यूज करूंगा, वी विल यूज एवरीथिंग, no need to worry about that. Sir, can we send the control for enter again number? Yes, we can use, we we can plan that in the catch statement. We can ask the user to enter the number again in the catch statement as well. There is no issue in that. तो उस चीज को आप अपने अकॉर्डिंग किसी भी तरह से प्लान कर सकते हो, दैट डिपेंड्स ऑन यू। अब हमको यहाँ पे सबसे पहले क्या चेक करना है, तो मैंने चेक किया इफ बी इज जीरो, मेरा अगर मेरा बी जीरो है, देन व्हाट आई विल डू, then I will throw an exception, throw, and I am returning a number. For example, 404 is an error, that page not found. I am returning that error. क्योंकि मैंने integer define किया, so I am returning integer. If you define string here, we can also pass some of the string like error, or we can define something else as well. Guys, wait a minute. Division, can you take over for 2 minutes?
Okay. So guys, the doubt is what int will pass in through. Okay, Vivek, actually int is not, we are not, it is not a value that we are passing. We are telling the compiler, because if this particular function int division, it is possible that it will throw an error. We know that. So we are telling the compiler beforehand that this is going to throw an error. That is why we are using the throw keyword. And after that, we are telling that the throw will take an integer argument as an input. We're telling the compiler beforehand that this throw function, that this throw value is going to take an integer as an input. So that is why we're telling throw int, so that niche we can use it within the catch. That value will pass to the catch, and that, every error has a different serial ID or an integer number. Meaning of throw int. Throw int is basically we are telling the compiler beforehand, so that whenever the code is being compiled, during the compilation it will be known to the compiler that this function int division can throw a particular error, which and that throws will be taking an integer argument as an input. It will basically take an integer argument. This kind of technique where you do not define the function, you're just telling the argument, you're just giving it an argument which it will take, and you're not defining the function. This kind of structure is called a function prototype. ठीक है, इस चीज को फंक्शन प्रोटोटाइप बोलते हैं, when you do not define a function but you just tell that this is the kind of argument that it is going to take. Throw and throws. Okay, another difference between throw and throws that
Actually,
varies.
throws is not a keyword in C++. Throws is a keyword in Java. In C++, throws keyword does not exist. And now proceeding with the thing that we were doing, that we have thrown error and else. We can write else or not. We need not to worry about that. So we will go back to the code and now test if it is working fine. तो अब इसने catch intent करा, और हम यहाँ पे बता भी सकते हैं कि error occurred and error number. We can provide a manual to them regarding the error number कि वो error number कौन सा है. We can define error numbers according to us. क्योंकि जैसे आपने वेब में भी देखा होगा there are some of the error defined. तो हमने ये integer return कर दिया कि error number is false. So let us see it in action. So as we can see that there is a it has returned that error occurred and error number is this. And after that, it has printed hello because hello was out of the scope of the try block. So hello तो हमको करना ही करना है every time. So this is the basic thing regarding error handling. And ये कुछ basics थे, कल advanced level तक error जाएंगे और ये warning है because some of the specification are regarded in the C++11 standards. But ये पुराना standard है और ये चीज आनी जरूरी है. Then we will also get to know something new. तो उसके लिए भी बहुत सारी चीजें अभी आ रही हैं and tomorrow we will get to know about the error handling in detail. From now on, Divisam, you can continue with the diamond problem and let us end the session by 7:30. We have a 10 to 15 minutes for the diamond problem as well.
Okay, so diamond problem, can you share my screen? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
So
your screen is here.
diamond's problem is going to take a while to explain. So let's do that tomorrow. And what I'll do today is I'll tell you what is the diamond problem, and let's imitate the diamond problem. And tomorrow we will solve how to solve the diamond problem, the technique, by using some XSX keyword that we'll discuss tomorrow. So today, this is what we are done, right? We had our class caveman, we had class primate, which was, the class caveman was inheriting class primate, and up till here, everything was fine. Okay? If I just execute the code again, you can see this is what we had done till now. Basically, primate class object was being created. So yeah, constructor called, I am King Kong, fear me, blah blah blah. Then we were basically creating object of class caveman, which is a child of primate, inheriting from primate. So whenever that object is created, automatically the parent constructor will be called, then the child constructor will be called, and then we can utilize all the functions. Cool. So I guess this is clear to everyone. All of us are on the same page for this. So now let's see what is the diamond problem and what is the error. What is the ambiguity that occurs that when diamond situation happens, the situation which is defined as diamond problem. So what I'm going to do here is I will make a second child. And before second child, first let's see what is multi-level inheritance, and then we will see what is multiple inheritance. So first let's make a multi-level inheritance. Okay. So what is multi-level inheritance? We know that this class caveman is inheriting from primate. Now this is the parent class, the root class. Okay. This primate is the parent of caveman, and let's say that then I have human. Okay. Human to be specific. So what if there is another class which is inheriting class caveman and which in turn is inheriting primate? So human is going to have all the properties, everything that is defined in class name, that is caveman. So इसके पास इन चीजों का भी access रहेगा, tail exists, and it will also be accessing primate. So it will also be accessing all of these stuff. So, and this technique is called multi-level inheritance. So let's quickly do that. It's going to be very simple. कुछ extra new चीज नहीं करना, मैं directly उसको copy paste ही कर दूंगा and that will work fine. बस name change करूंगा and यहाँ पे I'll change this to caveman. So basically human is inheriting caveman according to this inheritance chain that we have just seen. And yeah, I will change this. And let's give some special function to human, maybe like something, and this something will be false. So now our class caveman, anything that belongs to class human will have a special attribute which is called something, and that will be initialized then and there. And from here we will call the constructor of caveman, right? I think this is clear to everyone. We basically didn't do anything new. We have already learned what is inheritance. Now the only catch is the class that we have created now and the class from which it is inheriting, that itself is a child class of some other class. Okay? That is the only thing. So I hope this is clear to everyone. Can you quickly ping in the chat if this is clear to everyone? And by that time, let me just comment this section out, as well. Okay,
Also,
so
everyone, there is an announcement for today. Today's attendance will not be over Google Form. Today's attendance will be over LinkedIn comments. we will share your LinkedIn post over your respective WhatsApp group, where you will have to post the feedback for today's mentor session. If you were there in the mentor session, then it is great. And if you were not there in the mentor session, please review it. All the links to the mentor session are shared on your respective WhatsApp group, and even the best comment for the mentor section feedback will be featured in our next live video. So feel free to post your comments, and we will share the link on WhatsApp group and on Telegram as well by tonight 10 p.m. So no need to worry about that. We will share the link on your respective WhatsApp and Telegram group by tonight 10 p.m. Sorry. And Divisam, you can continue. And
Yeah.
please like, share, and subscribe our channel. Please like the video and please subscribe to our channel if you have not done till now. So please do that.
Okay. So guys, I hope this was clear to everyone. I don't see any no. I see a lot of yups. I see a lot of yeah and cool. Okay, that's cool. So basically, the only catch here is that the class that we are inheriting is itself a child class, which is itself inheriting for primate. So let's see. Let's see if it works fine. So what I'll do now is I'll create an object of class human. So I'll say human, and let's name something. Let's name them HM, and I'll say human HM. Okay, was it passing any attributes? Yeah, I have to pass these attributes. So I'll say HM. पास ही क्यों करूँ जब कॉपी करके पेस्ट कर सकता हूँ. So cool. I'm gonna paste these values right here. And guys, can you give me 1 sec? Just give me 1 sec.
Still, Devasam is back. Please feel free to ask any of the queries that you have and any of the support that you want from our end. Please feel free to
Hello.
put in the comment section, and we will try to gather it to you as soon as possible. Devasam, you can continue.
Yeah. So guys, basically, I created an object of class human, which was the the low in the inheritance chain. It was the last class. It was the most youngest class, inheriting from caveman, which is inheriting from primate. So if I write just this one statement, if I just create this one object which belongs to class human, can you quickly tell me in the chat which all constructors will be revoked? What constructors will be revoked first and in what order when I write this single object of class human, when I create an object of class human? Can you quickly ping in the chat what objects will be revoked, what constructors will be called? Let's see. And if you answer this, you know what, multi-level inheritance is clear to all of you already. Primate, caveman, human. Okay. Isha is telling only human will be invoked. So Isha, as you can see here, what is going to happen when I create an object of human is it will first call caveman from here, right? Because human cannot exist until caveman has been created. Okay? Because until a parent exists, a child cannot come from it, right? First a parent has to be there for, and forget about the C++ standard. Just think of a normal human being. If there is no parent, child can never exist. That is impossible, a hypothetical situation. So similarly, C++ follows the same standards. First of all, parent will be called caveman, and then the child will be created. And when this parent is called caveman, it itself is calling primate. So first of all, primate needs to be done because it is a dependency. It is the base on which caveman is built. So first of all, primate will be called, then caveman will be called, then human will be called. So let me quickly fix this. Human constructor call. And now let's see. Okay. Now quickly let's see the order in which they are being called. If I run the code now, you can see that firstly primate constructor is called, and this is the reason why I'd use the backslash t. I wanted some like a chain kind of visualization. I don't know why this looks cool to me. So basically, first of all, the primate constructor called. On the basis of that, caveman was called. I mean, the caveman object was created and caveman constructor was called. And After that, once the caveman object was finally created, human constructor could be successfully called. So now human can utilize everything that caveman and primate can provide. So that is multi-level inheritance. You can clearly see in the output, this is multi-level. Primate is called, caveman is built, and human is built upon both of this. अब इसमें एक छोटी सी catch है. Just give me 2 minutes and I'll quickly explain what is diamond problem and tomorrow we are going to solve that. So मैं क्या करूँगा, जैसे ये was multi-level, now I'm going to do multiple. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this. I'll say second child of primate. So this caveman was the first child, and I will now create a second child of primate. Okay, so, and let's make it cave woman. So there is a class cave woman which again inherits from primate, and the only difference between a man and woman is, woman has more common sense. So I will give it common sense because I think normally हमारे पास कम होता है. So common sense, and I'll make that true here as a default value. Okay, it might be controversial, but kind of my opinion. So I'll make it a constructor. So basically, now we have a class cave woman which inherits from public, the parent base constructor base class primate, and that in turn, okay, why is this an error? Okay, so there is an error here because again, only caveman was a friend of primate. So again, have to change the friend class. I have to also add cave woman as a friend class. And the reason was, as we already remember, that the constructor is private. So I have to declare it as a friend if I want to inherit it. Not for inheriting, I mean to create, access the private constructor. So that's cool. Everyone on the same page here. That why did I change the friend class definition and what is cave woman doing here? Okay, primate, caveman, human, understood, sir. Okay, that was the correct answer. Is there any key for VS Code works as F7 and Turbo C++ which shows the flow of control? Okay, to see the flow of control, there is nothing. It can only show you where you are right now as a breadcrumb. This thing is called breadcrumb. You can also travel to different places from here. Other than that, for the control flow, there is no such keyword as such because the difference is Turbo C++ is an IDE. It is for compiling and coding as well. And VS Code is just for editing. It is only an editor. We are still compiling our code from the terminal. So that's the difference. Okay, cool. So I guess this is clear to everyone. What is cave woman doing? And it is inheriting primate. And this is caveman, which is inheriting again primate. So if I show you a chart now, basically ठीक है. So यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है? The thing that is happening here is there is a class, base class, the root class primate. It has two children, caveman and cave woman. And then human is, you can kind of think that this is a product of caveman and cave woman together. So let's make human a product of both caveman and cave woman. Right now it was only inheriting caveman. So I will also add here. So this is how you do multiple inheritance. Till now it was multiple, but now it's multiple as well as multi-level. It's doing both of the things together. Or you can also think of this as a multiple. अगर तुम भूल जाओ कि caveman is also a child class, you can also call it just multiple. But in this context, it is doing multi-level as well as multiple together. So, this should make your concept bit clear together. That I mean, you can do all of these things together. So I have caveman and I also have cave woman. So what's happening now is class human is inheriting both caveman and cave woman. So this is the structure that I have built now. Caveman, cave woman, and together they have human. And what human is going to do is no default constructor exists for cave woman. Okay, cool. So from here, I will also call the constructor of cave woman. This is how you call multiple constructors at once. I will call caveman and I will also call the constructor of cave woman, and basically same values pass karunga, nothing fancy because both of them take exactly same values. We can verify that right here. Cave woman takes name, recipe, height, and caveman takes name, recipe, height. So both of them take the same attributes, and this is how you call multiple constructors from the child class. Within the child class, I'm calling caveman and cavewoman right within my absolute child class human. And if I what do I need to do? Yeah, it's cool. I think that part is done. And if I now call the run the program, you can see the problem that first of all let's see what is happening. I have just created one object of class human, and as you might have guessed already, first of all a primate constructor is called and a caveman is called. Okay. After that, primate constructor is called again, and the caveman constructor. Okay, I see what's the reason for that. मैंने यहाँ पे cave woman नहीं लिखा. Caveman. Okay, so this is cave woman. That is why it was being printed twice. Okay, if I run the code now, you can clearly see the order in which they are being called. First of all, primate constructor called. Okay, so first of all, the absolute constructor, that is the absolute parent of everyone, the primate, it is called, and then caveman is being called. And the reason for that is, सबसे पहले, in the human class, we had called the constructor of caveman. So it is working absolutely fine, and caveman itself was calling primate. So there you go, primate, caveman, and here's the problem. Primate फिर से call हुआ. Just look at this. Primate constructor, which was the absolute parent of everyone, it is called twice, and this is the reason of diamond problem. This is the core logic in the diamond problem, that the parent constructor, the absolute parent, is called twice. And after that, and why was parent constructor called twice? Because within the child class, we were calling caveman and it was also calling cave woman, right? We were using multiple inheritance, and cave woman also calls primate and caveman also calls primate. And logically, it is correct that primate is being called twice. But here's the problem. जब primate दो बार call हो जाती है, when primate is called twice, then all the values that were defined in primate, this recipe, this name, this height, let me just also quickly write a thing here. I will also add woman as a friend. Okay, so now the problem is, if all of these attributes, recipe, name, height, all of these have been copied twice because two times primate is created, right? So now this human has everything that cave woman has everything that caveman has, but it has everything which primate has two times, because primate is called twice. There is a copy of all the data that is defined in primates. And now here comes the problem. If I try to call anything that is inside the primate function, inside the primate class. So we remember that primate class had a function who am I, and whenever who am I was being called, it used to print the name and the height. So let's quickly verify if that is possible now. So let's do that. Human dot what's that name? Who am I? Okay. And here's the problem. Let me quickly run the code for you guys, and you can see human expected unqualified ID before token. Okay, sorry about that. The object is hm. Yeah, so hm and object of that class. And here comes the problem. It will say that who am I, the function who am I, is ambiguous. It is ambiguous, it is doubtful, because it does not know. Now the C++ is confused which who am I talking of, because as we know that in the previous section, if I just if I just comment it out and run the code for you guys again, you can see as the primate function is being called twice, and two times we have two functions which have the name who am I, because primate is called twice and who am I is inside primate. So now there are two who am I functions, and that is the reason that C++ is confused. If I run this code like this, it is confused. So it is telling that this function is ambiguous because there are two candidates, who am I, who am I. And that is diamond problem question, guys. That is the question problem of that is the core question of diamond problem. When we have multiple inheritance, any function that is in the absolute parent is copied twice, not just the you know not just the functions, all the attributes, all of these are copied twice. You cannot print any of this, you will get the same output that it is ambiguous. So that is the timing problem, and tomorrow we'll learn how to solve this. So any doubts still here, quickly ping in the chat, or that's all for today's session. One for cavemen and other for cavewomen. Exactly, Manshi. That is the reason why primate is being called twice. So guys, any doubts still here? Are we all on the same page? If we are on the same page, then that's all for today's session. And we have learned a lot of things today. So thank you for being so patient. And no doubt. Okay. No.
Guys,
Okay, cool.
feel free to ask your doubts. I am sharing the LinkedIn post in next 5 to 10 minutes. So please feel free to ask your doubts if you have any.
Okay. Welcome, guys. No problem. My pleasure. So, also research about what is the diamond. I mean, this is the diamond problem. Also research. You can, feel free to research what is diamond problem, study about it, how to fix it, and tomorrow we'll discuss the answer. Till now, just heard about ambiguity in program. Today only we come to know actually it is. Yeah, exactly. So that is ambiguity. This is one of the example of ambiguity. There can be a lot of ambiguous situation. This is one of the example which can be termed ambiguous because we have multiple reference to it. And we're also faced one of the ambiguous situation जो हम पहले solve करते थे using this. When we used to say this, when we used to say this also solves one of the ambiguity, because C++ sometimes might get confused ki what height are we talking of. So when we say this, it means this object, the height of this object, the name of this object. So this was one of the ambiguous situation that we saw before, but it was not very apparent क्योंकि इसमें error आता नहीं है इसमें, but this is a very apparent situation that we are stuck in. Shajit, I guess there are no doubts, so we can wrap the session for today.
Okay, Divisam, we can wrap up the session and I will share the link in the respective WhatsApp group. So, guys, I am ending the stream and the link will be shared in your respective WhatsApp group. So, stay tuned for the link and comment. The best comment will be awarded in our further session. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel. So, guys, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us and being a part of our initiative. Also, I have an announcement to make that tomorrow we are having a session with Gaurav Sharma sir, and the session is a great session. It is going to be a great session. So join us in that as well from 7 p.m. tomorrow. The session is going to be 7 p.m. tomorrow on Gaurav sir's channel, and the link will be shared in your respective WhatsApp group. So guys, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, guys. Hello.